Blue Moon is brewed with Valencia orange peel and a touch of coriander. It's a creative twist on a Belgian-style wheat ale for a taste that shines brighter. Taste responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A.
Hour number 2 on a busy Wednesday afternoon. It's Graca in for Stephen A. here on ESPN Radio. You know the drill. It's 866-ESPN, 866-729-3776. Keep on tweeting at me at Dan Graca, Graca. I'll tell you, there's so much happening in the world of sports right now. You know, we spent a lot of that first hour talking about the Yankees, and we'll get back to the phones and the Aaron Boone and, you know, the LaVar Ball mess out there on the West Coast. Where will Giancarlo Stanton end up? The Giants mess with Eli Manning and the quarterback position and where that organization is headed, all that stuff. But the thing that's really just preoccupying my mind really throughout this show, and I can't get past, it's consuming me, is that we got the TV on in the studio, and I'm looking over, and of course ESPN is on, and NFL Live is on, which is a great program. And one of the guys up there on the panel is none other than our good friend, Herm Edwards. But Herm was introduced a couple of days ago as the new football coach at Arizona State, and I think he's going to be outstanding, by the way. Outstanding. All these people saying that, you know, what is Arizona State doing? Please. They got themselves a good coach. I've been saying it for years, that Herm is going to be more suited for the college game. You imagine that guy walking into your living room if you're a recruit and him putting the sales pitch on you, and you're going to be able to say no to that guy? He's going to have some good recruiting classes. And, oh, by the way, you're recruiting to some nice weather out there, too? Their worst play. You know, he's not recruiting in North Dakota to go have kids come and play football. But that being said, I'm surprised that he's back on TV duty after he took over the job. Because normally when you take a job, you're gone, right? You got to devote every waking moment to beefing up your program and to getting it back on the right track. Like, how did that conversation go down with Arizona State? It's like, yeah, I'll take the job, but I got NFL Live on Wednesday. I can't get out of it. You know, it's the holiday season. A couple people took. I already committed to NFL Live. I can't go back on my word. I'm really. I wish we could make a call. I'm sure we can to the powers that be up in Bristol just to find out. Like, how did that work? Couldn't Herm get the day off, or did they make Herm work, or is Herm just an honorable guy and he held true to his commitment? But Herm won the press conference, as they say, and Herm knows how to work the room. Did you catch that give and take that he had with one of the members of the media at his presser the other day? I guess one of the publications there for the Sun Devils is something called Devil's Digest, and Herm had some fun with that. Take a listen.
Hold Rubino, Devil's Digest.
Devil's Digest, huh?
Yes, sir.
Where you located, my man?
Right here in Tempe.
Okay, Devil's Digest, okay. I'm Catholic now. I'm a Christian. Watch out them devils. Just saying.
Well,
we're good, brother.
You can see devils all over the place.
I ain't taking it personal.
And people, of course, you know, their naivete, or I don't know what reason, they hear that and they're making like, oh, Herm doesn't know the mascot for the team that he is now going to coach. He doesn't know that Arizona State is the. Come on. What do you think? He's an idiot? You mean to tell, what was he, born yesterday, that he had no idea who Arizona State was? Herm's a West Coast guy. He's never heard of Arizona State, the Sun Devils, and he doesn't know the team that he is now the head football coach for are called the Sun Devils. It's Herm being Herm. He's a funny guy. Stop taking everything so literally. My goodness. And he's going to do an outstanding job. He really is. I know it's tough out there in the Pac-12. You got a lot of competition. I mean, you got the Wildcats in state that you're going to have to contend with as well. Same conference, going for the same football players. But Herm's going to do a good job. And if you're a parent and you're sending a kid to college and you need somebody to watch over your son for the next 4 or 5 years and to help them grow and to develop as a person and as a football player, Herm's an honorable guy. And I really wish him all the luck in the world. 866-ESPN is the telephone number, 866-729-3776. Let's say hi to Ronell. Ronell, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
I'm doing good, sir. Appreciate taking for the call. I want to give my take on the LaVar Ball thing. As a father of 2 African-American boys, I thank God for him. And the reason why I say that, because he showed me what not to do. if my sons are going to be potentially famous. But so far, he's costed Lonzo Ball millions for like being on this baller brand stuff. So he could have got the Nike deal. They brought his brand out later on, and so far he might have jeopardized LiAngelo's career and potentially is going to hurt his youngest son's career. Now, he did a good job of raising them to be basketball players, but as a parent, not letting them take accountability for what they did and not really saying thank you for giving my son out of a jam. It just showed me what, as an African-American father, that what not to do, especially with my two boys. And I do. But
Ronell, let me ask you a question though. Does race even factor in here? Because you said as an African American father, wouldn't that carry true for any father, no matter what color your skin is?
That's true though. But since the narrative for African American stereotype of fathers that they're not really around, so it seems like he's carrying that. Oh, I'm here so I can do this. Oh, your job is to be there and also to be a parent, but as a father of, in regards to you black or white, you don't want to be like that. If you want your kids to succeed, you have to let them succeed. And for Lonzo Ball, I think he would play better if he got drafted by another team. So he'd be completely away from dad, away from the house, and let him grow to be a man. So he's doing more harm to his kids than he actually thinks by putting himself out, being just talking all kind of stuff. And he should just son, it's your time to be a man. So I think he's just doing a terrible job, as in letting his kids become the next stage of man, which is to be a man, to be an adult.
Yeah. Ronell, good phone call. I appreciate it. And look, I think any parent would tell you that if something like that happens, you would hope it would be used as a teaching moment, as they say. There's more to life than just basketball, because basketball can't always get you out of a jam. Your talents, your abilities, your God-given talents, that's not always going to be the answer. Because sometimes you got to face the music when you screw up. And these kids screwed up. And it seems like to me, instead of trying to teach them and impart some responsibility, he's making excuses. And with all the other stuff that predated this, even with Lonzo, and look, we knew this. He didn't do him any favors, talking him up, just saying these outlandish things about him and what he was going to do in the NBA and just how this transformative player he was going to become. He did not do him any favors. And let's remember something, you have grown men who are in the NBA, right? Guys who are professionals, guys who've been in the league 10 years, who made a living, who've honed their craft, who have families of their own, kids of their own. You think they want to hear from this guy who's sending a teenager into the NBA? And remember, this is pro basketball. These are livelihoods at stake. You think these grown men who have families and who have kids they got to feed, that they want to hear about some punk teenager who's going to come in and take jobs away from them and take money away from them and try to embarrass them? Please. And you see how it's working out, right? I don't think we have to justify it. You see how things are working out already. 866-ESPN. Chris in Jersey up next. Christopher, you're on ESPN. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
What's up, Chris?
I'm calling to agree with you on the Yankees, but first I want to go back to the Ball thing. It's like he has an AAU mentality. Normally it's the kids that are supposed to be spoiled and, be told that they can have anything they want just based on their basketball acumen. But it seems like all that stuff that's been told to Lonzo and LiAngelo as they've been growing up has shifted up into their father's brain. On the Yankees, for the past 5 years, they've been dumping salary and, trying to retool through the farm system and so on and so forth.
And steer clear of the luxury tax. That's the primary reason. They want to get down that luxury tax because not to go off on a tangent on that, the new measures that Major League Baseball has put in regarding exceeding the luxury tax threshold, those punishments are pretty punitive. So I don't care if you're the Yankees, you're the Dodgers, and the Dodgers want to steer clear of that because the punishments are almost like 50% greater if you exceed. So they do not want to have to pay those taxes.
The point I was making was that even with them not going out and spending like the Yankees of the early 2000s, late 90s, Girardi's kept them in contention year after year after year, and he gets a little bit of talent last year, and he gets him within a whisper of the World Series. So, Aaron Boone has some really big shoes to fill. Lastly, I just wanted to get your opinion. A lot of people said the Giants were supposed to be a Super Bowl team this year, or had a chance to be a Super Bowl team. Obviously, they're not, because their GM didn't really pay attention to their offensive line. Do you think that, given the talent that they do have, with the right coach and the right GM, do you think they could, quote-unquote, retool like the Yankees did and be in contention sooner rather than later?
In the NFL, anything is possible, Chris, and I thank you for the phone call. We know the way the league operates from one year to the next. You could be good again. You can. And there is talent on this team. And on that note, Steve Spagnuolo, who's meeting with the media now, as we speak, made it official that Eli Manning will indeed return as the starting quarterback. So the consecutive start streak is back to 1 for Eli. He went from 210, and now he's going to start a new one up now at 1 on Sunday against the Cowboys. They had to do it. They said they're still formulating a plan as to when Davis Webb is going to play. Nothing concrete, nothing definitive now as we speak. But back to the point that Chris made. Let me take you back about 20 years ago, okay? The Rich Kotite disaster with the New York Jets. And in Kotite's second and ultimately last season with the Jets, they finished 1-15. All right, that offseason prior, they went out and they made a lot of improvements in personnel. They had Keyshawn Johnson, who was the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Okay, big-time player. They gave a huge contract at the time to Neil O'Donnell, who was coming off of a Super Bowl with the Steelers. Didn't play well in the game, but still upgraded the quarterback position. They gave him 5 years, $25 million, which at the time was, outlandish for a quarterback. So they brought in Jeff Graham, who was a very, very good wide receiver, Jumbo Elliott, David Williams, a couple of new offensive tackles. They went out and spent money. That's the bottom line. And they went out and had a 1-15 season. They were even worse. What happens? Bill Parcells comes in 1997. They go from 1-15 to 9-7. An 8-win improvement. Why? Discipline, first and foremost. Accountability, and not to mention better coaching. And they didn't make wholesale personnel changes from 96 to 97. Still, a lot of those same guys were there. They just had better coaching. So if the Giants get their act right, make a few tweaks here and there, they're going to get a really good draft pick. Remember, they're going to probably be picking in the top 3. So you're bringing in an impact player, you figure. Hopefully you bring in a better coach. I don't think you could do much worse than Ben McAdoo was. There's still some talent. Remember, there's talent on this team. They won 11 games last year. They made the playoffs. So, yeah, if you're asking me, can the Giants go back to being a winning team in 2018? The answer is absolutely yes. Absolutely. David's calling next. David, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Good, Dave. What's up?
Hey, I just wanted to comment regarding Aaron Boone, and I'm with you on this. I don't know what's going on with this New York market. The first phrase that comes to mind is there's no loyalty among thieves. They literally are handing this man a championship, because I truly believe that the Yankees will win the championship next year. And if they don't do it, they'll do it the year next. However, when the Yankees win, it'll be Girardi's team. So they just handed it to Aaron Boone. And the way they treated Eli Manning, good grief. I mean, the whole offensive line was broke. I truly believe they should give Eli Manning one more year as a starting quarterback to take that team to the top. If Eli Manning leaves next year, oh, my goodness, they really did him wrong, and they did Girardi wrong. I don't know what's going on with the New York market. I really don't.
Chris, thanks for the phone call. Dave, excuse me. A couple of things. Number one, if you're asking me, can the Giants win next year with Eli as their quarterback? The answer is yes. Do I think he'll still be on the team? That's 50-50. Remember, he's due a $5 million roster bonus on the third day of the league year coming up in March. I don't know if the Giants are going to want to pay that. And I don't know if Eli wants to stick around. I'm sure Jacksonville and his old buddy Tom Coughlin's going to come calling, among others. Denver, a place where his brother had success, needs a quarterback in the worst way. I'm sure that there will be other suitors as well. As far as the Yankees are concerned, if you think that Joe Girardi is going to be, another coming of Buck Showalter with the Yankees, meaning, remember, Buck Showalter took that team to the playoffs, stood charge there with a rebuild, got him to a certain point, then Joe Torre came in and reaped the rewards and won 4 world championships. You think that Joe Girardi is going to kind of follow along those lines? Maybe. Remains to be seen, but Aaron Boone is walking into a good situation, as we've said. A lot of talent on that club. Dan Graca in for Stephen A. We're going to the top of the hour here on ESPN Radio.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Late, great Tom Petty. Dan Graca in for Stephen A. 866-ESPN, 866-729-3776. On the UCLA front, and again, this is a serious matter, no joking, with the wildfires out there in California. And we send our best and our prayers to everybody out there and, hope you get through it. I mean, I've seen some of those pictures and videos. It looks like a movie. I'm waiting for Howie Long to walk out of there. So it is just awful. UCLA has canceled tonight's men's basketball game against Montana due to concerns stemming from area wildfires. Bruins also announced all other team workouts and practices scheduled for today also have been canceled. That is some scary stuff out there. So hopefully everybody does their best to soldier on there. It's scary stuff. Let's say hi to Lee in Sacramento. Lee, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you? Listen,
What's up,
Lee? I agree with everything you said about the Yankees. I was waiting, listening. I'm like, you were making all my points. But you did get me fired up about LaVar Ball, and I'm just going to call it like I see it.
Yeah.
Am I the only one that thinks he's like a snake oil salesman? And this is all for shoes. I mean, you were just talking a second ago about how these are grown men in the NBA. Well, he's stinting that process for Lonzo, in my opinion, and he's not allowing him to do that. He's treating him like he's in T-ball, and I feel like this whole thing has gotten out of control. We've given him way too much of the microphone, and he's selling us, to be honest, mediocre so far players in the way they're acting off the court, some of them that are on the court. But at the end of the day, this is all about him selling his shoes. Like that's what this is all about, and I don't know why it doesn't seem that obvious to everybody else.
No, I think there's truth to that. Now, let me ask you a question, Lee. All right, you seem like a smart guy. You seem like you're well-adjusted. You got a good head on your shoulders, right? Have you ever contemplated for a second buying any of the big baller stuff?
Never.
Do you know anybody who has either bought it or thought about buying anything?
I've only heard people on the air talk about it, and they haven't even gotten them yet.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think they're flying off the shelves. I don't think there's a lot of website traffic during the holidays. So, look, whatever he's doing, I'll tell you this, I don't think it's good for business. So if that is the approach, and I agree with you, I do think to a certain extent that is the case, and it applies a little bit here, I don't think it's helping business in any way.
Snake oil salesman. That's just how I feel every time I see him or hear him talk. I feel like he's trying to pitch me on something. It's like, let your kids play ball. Let Lonzo come into his own on the court. Right now, all I see is if Lonzo misses a couple shots, in my mind, he's going home and getting yelled at by LaVar. Do you know what I'm saying? It just doesn't feel like it's supposed to.
Yeah. Lee, thanks for the call, buddy. Look, I think he's a wonderful self-promoter, right? I mean, he's taken the family name and made it national, but when it comes to the business side of things and whether or not it's helping out their brand, so to speak, he's as useful right now as a snowblower salesman in the desert. I really believe that. I mean, nobody cares about his stuff. He can wear that stupid hat on all the TV interviews he does and the logo and the brand. It's not compelling me or anybody else that I know to go out there and buy any of it. Because what does it stand for? I mean, who is the athlete, right? Who's the major athlete that is behind this and going out there and exhibiting this on a night-in, night-out basis? What, Lonzo? How's that working out in the NBA with the Lakers? How are they faring? How's he faring? Right? The other kid just got pulled out of school. How's that working out? What, are they going to sell that stuff at the Louis Vuitton store in China? Is that what he was doing? Working a deal there? Trying to do some business? I don't think so. Kareem in Manhattan up next. Kareem, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
What's up, Kareem?
Hey, you know what? I want to talk about Lonzo Ball. I think he's getting a lot of unfair criticism, but, I mean, he put himself in that situation. I just look at it like this. LaVar Ball's from Compton, I believe, grew up in the streets. He could have went the wrong way, like a lot of young black men, but he didn't. He made himself into a good person. He married a white woman, beautiful lady. Her parents were against it. Around that time, they was big on, racism is still here now. So my point is, he turned his life around. Mm-hmm. He made good money. They put together a good family, they in a nice home. So what I'm saying is, all this basketball stuff, at the end of the day, he's a father. He's a father first. So if he wants to pull his son out of school because he don't want his son to deal with all the scrutiny, and other courts, other teams, they can be brutal. Maybe he doesn't want his kid to go through that. There's a lot of kids that go overseas, that grow up overseas, that turn pro at a young age. So if he wants to go that route, the one thing his family has going for them, they're popular, like the Kardashians. Who knows what their school history was like, but they're rich. They're selling makeup, top of the line. Why? Because they're popular. So he's banking off his kids' popularity, but he hasn't done anything to hurt anyone. And anyone saying he's doing them bad, he's living the American dream. He has no boss. He doesn't answer to anyone, and I think that's the problem that people have with him. He lives the way he wants to live. He raises his family the way he wants to, and it's working for them. People may not say it's working, but how many fathers want to have a child in the NBA, wants to have two other children that has potential to go to the NBA? So I think, LaVar, you keep doing your thing. If they put a microphone in your face, that's because they want to hear what you got to say. He put it up. It's supply and demand. So as long as he's in demand, then he's gonna be out there, and people should just be able to say, listen, he's not a traditional guy, never has been. But he was a practice squad player for the NFL. Right. He was a trainer, so he was a hustler. He hustled his money to put his family in a position to be where they are now. So I think people just get caught up in all of the rhetoric and say, listen, this guy is an American he's an entrepreneur, and he's controversial, and negative publicity, bad publicity, whatever, it's all good publicity, and that's what he's living off of. So people can hate all they want, but he ain't do nothing to hurt nobody. His children are good children. They made a mistake. Maybe he doesn't want his kid to go through the scrutiny. Maybe he wants to have his own sneaker. Maybe he wants him to go overseas and go another route. But there's nothing wrong with going another route just because he's not going through the blueprint that everybody else went. Let that man live. He's not hurting nobody.
Well, you can say, look, everything you said, there's a certain degree of truth to that, Kareem, and I appreciate the call. All right, you make some good points. However, you could say that he's present. He's very much a hands-on father. All right, you give him credit for that. But is that something that we should really be bending over backwards commending him for? I mean, there is some inherent responsibility whenever you do become a parent. You should be there for your kids. It's like with an athlete. When you're talking about an athlete, when they say, he plays hard. They gave effort. They played hard. Well, shouldn't they? They're getting paid millions of dollars. That's at the very least. They could play hard. But he also just had a kid who was detained for shoplifting in China. And he's kind of poo-pooing it as if it's no big deal. That's just the beginning. What happens if another episode happens moving forward because LeAngelo thinks, you know what? My father didn't care what I did. I could go out and do whatever I please because I'm a member of the Ball family. We're entitled. We can get away with anything. That's the danger. 866-ESPN, 866-729-3776. Steve Spagnuolo spoke. Eli Manning spoke. We'll get the comments from the old starting quarterback of the Giants, and now their new head coach, at least for the next 4 weeks. Dan Graca in for Stephen A. till the top of the hour on ESPN Radio.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it! Graca in for Stephen A. We're rolling till the top of the hour here on ESPN Radio. 866-ESPN, 866-729-3776. Giants, of course, cutting ties with Ben McAdoo and Jerry Reese a couple of days ago in a move that, look, it saves face. It's more to calm the pack of wolves that are the angry Giant fan mob than anything else. And I say it all along, and I'll stick to it, even in the aftermath of what's been done. I don't believe that there's anything you gain from firing a head coach midseason in the National Football League. I really believe that. All right, it became apparent that Ben McAdoo was not going to be the head coach next season for the Giants. Look, if you think that, you get a few more fans in the building for the remaining home games, and granted, they still have got home games against their division rivals to close out the season. So don't think for a second that played a role into it. It's business more than anything else, and especially this week with the Dallas Cowboys, maybe their biggest rival, right, in that building where you know that there's going to be a ton of Cowboy fans at MetLife Stadium throw in the fact of how they butchered the Eli Manning situation. All right, they were kind of backed up to the wall, and something had to be done. So now Steve Spagnuolo takes over. And hey, they have to pick somebody to be the interim head coach. And that's why it's kind of laughable to me, because how's that Giant defense played this year? Right? They've been a disaster. All the issues when you questioned the effort and the suspensions and the insubordination or whatever you want to call it from the New York Giants this year, a lot of it came from the defensive side of the ball. So the guy who shepherded that unit was Steve Spagnuolo, and now you're rewarding him to a sense by making him the interim head coach for the last 4 weeks of the season. They would have been better off, I think, picking a guy off the street. Go to your season ticket base and have a raffle. Do you want to coach the Giants in the month of December? Well, you can win. It could be your lucky day. Chance of a lifetime. They're more worthy than Steve Spagnuolo. So Spags did the first thing that he could do to get him at least temporarily back in the good graces of the Giant fan, and that's make Eli the quarterback for Sunday against the Cowboys. How long he remains the quarterback remains to be seen. But here was Steve Spagnuolo moments ago out there in East Rutherford in his first meeting with the media as the interim coach of the football Giants.
Eli Manning will be the quarterback for this football team in this game. Okay, the why, Eli, all I can tell you is this. When John Mara and I talked, one of the first things he asked was about the quarterback situation, and I said, John, my gut right now is that Eli should be the starter. What you have to understand is, when I was coaching just the defense, I have the blinders on, and all I'm worried about is the defense. I stay in my lane. So I didn't have my eyes around what was going on offense, who was playing, none of that. So I took my gut and visited with the offensive coaches, and together with that and my gut, Eli Manning's going to be our quarterback. So for right now, I'm staying heavily involved with the defense and the game planning, obviously with some new duties here. I'll be in and out of there, okay? So when I'm not there and somebody has to cover, Dave Merritt will do that. We'll worry about calling the game on Sunday when we get to Sunday. I will figure that out as we go. I'll be honest with you, I'm not focused at all on that. And I would say this to everybody, and I mean this sincerely, I leave that in God's hands. I'll be where he wants me to be. And right now he wants me to be here for this game, and that's how I'll function. And that's as honest as I can be.
Well, just in a few comments, there's a lot that you could take from that. He threw out the G word, right, which you always commend somebody for. So we'll see who, God wants to coach the Giants next year. I don't know if it'll be Spags or it'll be somebody else, but we'll wait and see. We're on his time. We're all on his time. But I thought it was funny. Immediately when he announces Eli's the starting quarterback, he goes, why? Well, I'll tell you why. And he told you that he had his blinders on and he was focused on the defense, as any defensive coordinator should be. But he met with the coaches, the offensive coaches, and they put their heads together and they came to the conclusion that Eli Manning is the best fit to be the starting quarterback of the New York Giants. He conveniently left out that, I also, when John Mara told me that I was going to be the interim head coach, he said, and oh, by the way, Eli's the quarterback again. Sure thing, Mr. Mara. Absolutely. For sure. You want me to go tell Eli now, or should you tell him? Please. Oh, my goodness. Boy, how did the Giants get to this point? Really? And I feel bad for Steve Spagnuolo because he's in a situation now where, look, the bet has been made already. It's not his doing. And he already had an audition as a head coach. 3 years with the Rams. You want me to run down those numbers? 1-15, 7-9, 2-14. That ain't getting you in the Hall of Fame. And I don't want to rain on his parade at all, but again, we know that the Giants are going to look elsewhere for their next head coach. How did the succession plan work last time when they took a member of the previous head coach's staff and made him the next head coach? Not too good. Not to mention the fact that this defense has not done anything to where Steve Spagnuolo will probably get serious head coaching consideration with the Giants or any other team in the National Football League. They've been a disgrace. So they save face a little bit. You'll see the number 10, the Eli Manning jerseys out there at MetLife Stadium this week, and, whatever. Right? This Giants season has been a disaster. If they win one more game, they win 2 more games, more power to them. But I think it's to the point with Giant fans now, they probably don't even want him to win any more games. Play for that draft pick. Right? What good is it to finish 4-12 as opposed to 2-14. The season is going to be thought of as a disaster, whether you won 2 games or 4 games. It is a season to forget for the New York Football Giants. Case in point. Like I said, hopefully we'll hear from Eli Manning. He spoke to the media a few moments ago as he gets to start a new streak now as the starting quarterback of the New York Football Giants. 866-ESPN, 866-729-3776. A lot more to get to here till the top of the hour. Dan Graca hanging in for Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Graca in for Stephen A. We're going till the top of the hour here at 866-ESPN, 866-729-3776. You can tweet at me at Dan Graca, Graca. Let's get back to the busy phones. Jeter in L.A. You're on ESPN Radio. What's up, Jeet? How are you?
I'm doing good. It's a little smoky out here, so I appreciate your thoughts for us out here. It's really bad.
Absolutely. Be safe.
Yeah. Anyway, just 3 points real quick. Number one, congratulations to Herm Edwards. If I had a son that could go play college football, there's no better mentor or guy with character that I wouldn't want him to play for. Unfortunately, the Giants probably should have hired him, but I'm sure he didn't want the job.
I don't think he was going to get an NFL head coaching job, and especially he had already coached in New York. I think that was a remote possibility.
Yeah. Number two, I'm tired of these Yankee fans. With my last name being Jeter, I'm a big Yankee fan, and I'm a big Joe fan. I was very surprised they let him go. But if you watched him manage the last year, he didn't really look happy. I don't know what's going on in his personal life. Who knows? But, I've lived and worked in New York City, and it gets to be a grind after a while, so maybe he was a little bit tired. But Aaron Boone is very close to that organization, and this guy knows baseball. So if you look at the Rams coaching staff now, we're seeing a change of the guard where maybe it's a little better to have younger coaches in the game. So that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're changing over a new leaf. We know that. Baseball certainly is, I think, as a whole. A little bit different there to compare what happens with baseball and managerial jobs versus the National Football League and the openings there we see at head coach. I mean, you can hire a young coach, but it doesn't mean it's going to work. Lane Kiffin wasn't exactly setting the world on fire when he became a head coach with the Raiders, right? And he was a young coach. So I think age is irrelevant. You just got to go out there and have success. And Sean McVay has done a nice job there with the Rams. He really, really has. We were talking about it a little bit earlier, too. There are teams, a handful of teams can technically clinch their divisions, their respective divisions in Week 14, and then you see teams that can wrap up playoff berths this weekend. But the Jaguars, the Rams, these are not traditional powers that we think about in the National Football League, and they've had some lean years of late. And you're seeing the Jaguars and the Rams are going to be, it's reality. They're going to be in the playoffs this year. But that's what the NFL wants. They want that parity aspect. They like it. Clinton's up next. Clinton, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
Good, man. Yourself?
Good, Clinton. What's going on?
Not much. A couple of things. You were talking about the Yankees and the problem with Boone, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, Girardi, yeah, he looked frustrated at times, but by the same token, it's like, what more do you expect out of the guy? He got you one game away from the World Series, and you're going to let him go because he didn't get you there? Really? Not that I'm not happy for Aaron Boone, who is really a good guy, but why are you going to let somebody go when they're right there on the cusp of it? And the other thing is, Eli should never have been benched to begin with, because as far as I'm concerned, looking at it, because I'm just a general football fan,
right?
Eli was not the problem. Never was. Yeah, he could throw a couple of lost interceptions, but how else are you going to win? You got to take chances.
You're right about that. And look, has Eli been perfect, or was Eli playing great football? And even you want to even go back to last year when they won 11 games and they made the postseason, right? I mean, Eli was not great last year, and I'll tell you what, The offense as a whole was not great, and that was one of the things that stood out to you. Remember, the Giants won 11 games last year on the strength of their defense. Their defense was outstanding. They went out there the previous offseason, spent a bunch of money, brought in guys like Olivier Vernon, Snacks Harrison, and Janoris Jenkins, on and on and on. The defense is what helped them win games. Offensively, they struggled, and that was one of the things that jumped out at you with Ben McAdoo, who was an offensive guy by trade and who'd been on the staff for a couple of years. He becomes the head coach, and the offense took a step back. So that was something that didn't necessarily jive with me, but now that's a thing of the past because we know that it's not going to be Ben McAdoo's offense, not going to be his system moving forward, and, the Giants probably going to have some changes at some key areas, and quarterback could be one of them. And I think it's one of those situations where, for so long you kind of take players for granted. You look at some of these teams, like, the standby always with the NFL is the Browns, right? You look at how many different starting quarterbacks have the Browns had just in the 2000s. What are we up to, like 20 or 30? Just something ridiculous. Giants have had one starting quarterback for the last 12 years, right? Think about having that security, that peace of mind. The most important position in the NFL, maybe the most important position in all of sports, and they've had one guy that you can count on each and every week. That's important. That is important. That's a luxury. And you know what? Giants might be parting with that as soon as the season ends because they might be going in a different direction. Don in Jersey, we'll close out with you. Don, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
Hey, man, thanks for taking my call.
What's up, Don?
You think Tom Coughlin's laughing a little bit inside after all this?
I think so. As he's polishing his 2 Super Bowl rings, yeah, I'd say so.
Exactly. And also with Aaron Booth, I see a little George Seifert, Barry Switzer situation there. He's inheriting not a championship team, but a pretty good one, and I think if he just rides the course, nobody gets injured, there could be some potential good things. And also, do you think like a Brady versus Breeze Super Bowl might be the sexiest matchup?
Well, I think there's a lot of interesting matchups, Don, and I thank you for the phone call. Obviously, you have to say that the Patriots are the prohibitive favorite right now in the AFC, but I think the NFC is still one big jumbled mess. Anybody could come out of it. There's 3 or 4 teams that could emerge. That's going to do it for us today. Great job, everybody, chiming in. Thanks to Kat. Thanks to John. We'll catch you next time here on ESPN Radio. So long.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Channel 80 and the ESPN app.